Hey, hello, good evening. How are we all? I made notes. I have made some notes. Um, it's Emmy Awareness Week this week, with Emmy Awareness Day being on Saturday. And as some, if not most, all, none, I don't know, of you know, I am an Emmy sufferer, Emmy warrior, Emmy survivor, whatever terminology you like to use. Hi, Harriet. Um, So I said this morning, in fact, when I did a different live, that I'd be coming back on tonight to chat about Emmy. Since then, I went out for lunch, had a lovely time, properly enjoyed it. Hiya, Vicky. Came home, chatted with the children, everything was fine. And then hey Katie, around 6 o'clock, 6:30 maybe, my temperature plummeted to the point that I'm now sitting here wearing one of Paul's old work fleeces, and I have 2 quilts covering me up, and I'm still cold. This does not bode well for tomorrow, let me tell you. It also, at this point in time, makes me want to cry. I feel like if you've ever had a flu, really, really bad flu, where every bone in your body and every muscle and every fibre and every nerve ending and every synapse and every nail and every hair follicle aches, that's what I've got now. But I haven't got a cold and I haven't got flu. I've got ME. And I was tempted to just put an apology up and say I'm not coming on tonight. But it's ME Awareness Week. So this seems like a perfect thing to make you all aware of what it is. So here goes. I'll try and keep it together, but like I say, I am in quite a lot of pain. I'm really cold. And I may forget what I've said. I may repeat myself. I may start the end of a sentence and not finish the end of a sentence. These are some of the symptoms of ME, which you may or may not see in real time. Just warning you. So I've got my notes. I will try and refer to them. I will keep going as long as I can, but I may have to stop because I may just lose it. So if I do, I apologise. In the meantime, if anybody wants to share this, hiya Joe, if anybody wants to share the video to any ME groups or to any non-ME groups or to any of their friends, feel free. This is all about raising awareness and getting the word out about this hideous illness. Hi darling. Hi Dawn. It is a hideously crippling disease and not enough is known about it, hence the raising awareness. And it could be quite difficult for me. Hi Heather. Thank you Joe. Thanks Harriet. Oh, thanks for all the hearts, lovely. Thank you Heather. So I'll try and look at my notes and I'll try and keep going, but if I disappear, I do apologise. So, I've written down ME stroke CFS. So it's myalgic encephalomyelitis. Isn't that a lovely mouthful? Otherwise known as chronic fatigue syndrome. I personally don't like the terminology of chronic fatigue syndrome. I think it lessens the impact of the disease because it implies that you're just tired. And while I am tired, I have a lot. That is such a small part of what the illness is. One of the quotes I saw a while back was calling myalgic encephalomyelitis chronic fatigue syndrome is like calling Alzheimer's chronic forgetfulness syndrome. There is so much more to it than just fatigue. So I have got a list of the symptoms, but I'll get to that in a bit. I first got this when I was 20. I'm now 49. Thanks, Heather. I got this when I was 20. I had a bout of glandular fever, from which I didn't recover, essentially. It was misdiagnosed glandular fever, and I got given tonsillitis medicine, and that produced a hideous reaction in me of a thing called a Stevens-Johnson syndrome. It's not a well-known syndrome. I don't expect anybody to have heard of it. Very few people have heard of it, and I got that diagnosed by my eye specialist who had seen a case of it and knew exactly what it was. I later found out that can be fatal. Fortunately, in my case, obviously not. What it left me with was an incredible sensitivity to light, which is why you often see me wandering around with the big dark sunglasses on, that I still have to this day, nearly 30 years later. And an incredibly compromised immune system, which means that I catch colds easily and I catch bugs easily, and when I get them it takes me longer to recover. Because I have asthma, I'm very prone to chest infections, because obviously if you have a weak spot in your body, that's what gets attacked. So I am prone to chest infections. Fortunately, a lot of the infections for me have been in abeyance recently. So I'm just left with the ME. Joy. But trust me, that's enough. And it was... So I wasn't properly diagnosed with ME until 2002. So that's another 10, 12 years later, when I was working in a lovely job in Leeds that I really liked, travelling on public transport to and from Leeds every day, and working a full-time job that was quite high-pressured. Loving it, but still a lot of stress and a lot of responsibility. And I got a cold, and I never recovered from the cold. And it was actually the occupational health guy from that company who said, "You've got post-viral fatigue." And I looked at him and went, I've got what? A bit of what? Post-viral fatigue. Oh, okay. He said, yeah, and if that doesn't clear up within, another 6 months, then that will, I'm sorry to say, be chronic fatigue for you. Oh, okay. And chronic fatigue is unrecoverable from. Oh, nice. There are ways to manage the symptoms. Joy. But you will never be completely clear of it. You may go into remission with it, but you'll never be completely clear of it. Oh, okay then, thanks. So then I was properly diagnosed in 2002, and then probably about 2008, I finally got referred to the CFS clinic, CFS clinic in Leeds, which is the nearest one to here. And let me tell you, that was fun getting to, for somebody with ME that doesn't drive. In fact, it might have been a bit later because I think I'd got the children to school. And some of the stuff that we went through there did help, to the point where I started to volunteer in the school that my children went to. And then, hi Sue, I gradually built up and was doing more work, and then I got a part-time job in the school, and then I got a slightly more hours part-time job, at which point I thought, as we all do, yay, I'm cured. Really should know better. And then I took a further step, leap back into the employment world, and took a managerial post in a town that I had to travel to by public transport. And I lasted there 18 months, nearly 2 years. 21 months it will have been, all told. And ignored lots of warning signs from my body that things were not well, that I was pushing myself too far. And in January 2017, my body just said enough is enough, and I went to bed one night and couldn't get up the next morning. And for the next 3 months, I struggled to get out of bed. I made it to hospital appointments, and that was pretty much it. And those I was either taken to or took taxis to. The end result was that I lost my job because they couldn't keep the position open, and also it wasn't healthy for me to have the worry, hiya Joe, to have the worry of the job being kept open and all the work building up and nobody doing the work, and because I'm that type of person, it's all going to go wrong, and I need to be there, and that stress needed to be taken away from me. So in the end, me and the job parted ways. So that was last April. And since then, I've been largely housebound. I do go out. People do see me out and about. I've been out for a lovely lunch today. I go out most Fridays because Paul has Fridays off and we go out together, so I know I'm safe. I go out most Saturdays to the rugby because it's a children thing. Hiya, Tiffany. And I don't want to disappoint the children. That's going to be a trigger for me. So I do that. And then some days I tend to collapse in a heap because I've done too much. And then Mondays I slowly start to recover. And Tuesdays I'm sort of getting back on track. And Wednesday I might be able to leave the house. Hi, Lausanne. Hi, Lisa. But then again I might not. It varies. Depending on how much I've done on the Friday and the Saturday. But doing the things on the Friday and Saturday is my choice. Hi, Nicola. Because I want some semblance of a normal life. Which with ME is increasingly difficult. So that's a little bit about me and what my life is like, roughly, for the moment. So, some of the main symptoms for ME, and also for fibromyalgia, which is a linked illness, and also crippling to the people who have it. A lot of people who have ME also have fibromyalgia, and vice versa. I, at the moment, do not have fibromyalgia. I, at the moment, just have ME. So, symptoms, pain, incredible amounts of pain, which isn't in the title of chronic fatigue syndrome, hence why I don't like it. I have random pains. They can crop up anywhere, and just because they're in my shoulder one day doesn't mean they won't be in my knee the next day. I get pains where there is no rhyme or reason to get a pain, like the front of my shin. There is nothing at the front of your shin. There is no muscle to spasm. There are no tendons. There is just bone and skin. Essentially, if you look at a skeleton, there's pretty much nothing between your shin bone and your skin. But I get pains there. Sometimes I get ankle issues, joints particularly, ankles, knees. Hip flexor is one of the worst. Hey, Laurie, because you can be sitting still and have stabbing, shooting pains go through your hip flexor. ME is myalgic encephalomyelitis, darling, which is a mouthful. It's also known as chronic fatigue syndrome, and this week is ME Awareness Week, which is why I'm doing this live and being a complete hot mess. I'm sorry for your sister-in-law, Heather. Fibromyalgia is equally painful, and in some cases more so, depending on the level of fibromyalgia and where it is. So, random varying strength. Sometimes it's just a dull ache that you just kind of put up with, and then other days it's rampant stabbing, hot searing pain, and it's unremitting. So you can take as many painkillers as you like, and it doesn't go away. I've got now. I have a full raft. I have a range from sort of plain paracetamol up to really high strength tramadol. And the only other options that there are some things that you take permanently, which I don't want to be on permanent painkillers. I'm on a low strength permanent painkiller, and I don't want to be on a higher strength permanent painkiller because I don't think it's good for my system. So at the moment I'm kind of working through it all with different levels of painkillers each day and managing it myself. But it's hideous, and so that's that side. There is the exhaustion, which is the fatigue, obviously. Yeah, the real term for it, it's quite a mouthful, which is why we call it ME, because myalgic encephalomyelitis takes some getting your tongue round. It's horrible, and I hope your cousin is not a severe case, darling. So there's the exhaustion, which is, it is being tired, but if you're tired and you go to bed and you get a good night's sleep, you wake up and you're refreshed. If I'm tired and I go to bed and I can sleep all night and I can wake up feeling like I haven't slept at all. Now, I know some people do that from time to time, and they wake up and go, oh, it's just, I didn't sleep well last night and I'm still really tired. That's every single day for some people. But for others it's not. For others, they can't sleep. They are absolutely deathly tired, but cannot sleep to save their lives. And I know there are insomniacs who suffer something similar. But again, for us it's cumulative, and if you're absolutely exhausted and at your lowest ebb and then you can't sleep, you have no way of refreshing your body, so then it leaves you open to the pain, which then makes you not be able to sleep, which leaves you open to more pain, and it is just a vicious circle. There is also the sudden onset of tiredness, which I've been doing a little bit recently that I hadn't been doing before, where I was actually in the middle of a conversation with Paul the other day and I fell asleep, literally, on him. Normally I can tell if I'm going to go, because if you're talking to somebody or you're listening to the TV, normally it feels like they're suddenly talking in a cave. It goes, "Hey Rob," it goes, it's really hard to describe the change in the tone, but it sounds like they're getting further away but clearer, if that makes sense. And so I know then I'm going to fall asleep. But the other night there was no warning. I was literally chatting to Paul, and as I finished my sentence, I fell asleep while he was still talking to me. And I was out for an hour and a half. And when I woke up, I didn't feel at all refreshed. In fact, I felt worse. So that's great. Brain fog, cognitive function, the forgetting things. Literally from words that you suddenly can't remember, that you've used all your life. The other day, the children said, "What were we having for tea?" And I said, "I'm going to go and put the pizzas in the washing machine." What's bad about that, other than the fact that pizzas don't go in washing machines, obviously, number one. Two, we weren't having pizzas. We were having stew, and it was going in the oven. But that's brain fog for you. Sometimes I can start a sentence, not know where it's going, and forget by the end of the sentence what the start of the sentence was, so I trip over my words and I've got no idea what I'm trying to say. Other times I'll say a sentence and go, "That's not made my point, I'm not happy with the way I've said that." So I try and re-say it a different way, only the better way I thought of saying it, gone out my brain, so I just repeat the first sentence again, which makes you sound like a complete numpty, because the first sentence wasn't good in the first place, and now you've repeated it in exactly the same way, only getting more frustrated. Brain fog is a nightmare. Also, it can be quite detrimental to your health, shall we say, if you've forgotten whether you've taken your pills. I have a raft of tablets to take every morning to keep on top of this, and sometimes I will go in the kitchen and go, "Did I take them this morning? Did I take them this morning?" So I have to build a routine in so that I know whether I've taken them. And I have to build a routine in so that I know if I get interrupted, I know which tablets I've taken and which tablets I haven't taken yet. Which is fun when you have a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old that you also have to get ready for school in the morning. But, we do. So that's the brain fog. There are probably many other instances of brain fog. Can't remember them at the moment. Hey-ho. Sensitivity to... I've already said I'm sensitive to light. Very much so. Hence the big dark glasses that are really not a good fashion accessory. I'm fortunate in that I can cope with artificial light, as long as it's not sudden. So if you go into a dark room and it's suddenly switched on, I struggle. If you've been to the cinema and the house lights suddenly come up, that's a struggle. If you're out on the road at night and you come face to face with headlights, that's a struggle. But artificial light like this, when I put the lights on before it gets dark outside, so that you've got a bit of equilibrium, if you see what I mean. So I can cope with this. There's lots of ME sufferers can't cope with any form of light and have to live in darkened rooms and can only cope with sort of blue light or green light or pale pink light, whatever their sensitivity is. And sometimes have to wear shades as well, even in the palest of lights. There's also sensitivity to noise, which again I don't have particularly, although having said that, I don't necessarily like having the TV on loud if I'm either in a crash or building up to a crash. And the other one for me is temperature, hence the being huddled up like old Mother Hubbard in, a normal set of clothing and a fleece and 2 quilts wrapped over me and still shivering. I am very, very susceptible to temperature changes, and my inner thermostat is gone. Just doesn't work anymore. So I can be out on a, today, glorious sunny day, and probably more yesterday, the more glorious sunny day when there were people out in strappy t-shirts and shorts and things, and I was still dressed for winter. Conversely, there can be the bitterest winter days and I'm wandering around the house in the strappy t-shirt and shorts. My inner thermostat has no idea what it's meant to be doing. Mental health. This is why ME often gets misdiagnosed, because there are elements of depression and anxiety and panic attacks to ME, which if you describe to your doctor in the first instance, he will just write off as depression, anxiety and panic attacks, and he will put you on antidepressants. And it's not depression. There is an element of depression and anxiety to ME because, be fair, if your life is stolen away from you as you know it, you're going to be hard pressed not to be depressed about it. Seriously. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. So there are severe elements. There are similarities in that you hide away. You don't want to talk to people because of any of the sensitivities, any of the embarrassment, that you don't know whether you're going to be well enough to talk to people, any of that stuff, which is all hideous. So there are similarities, but depression isn't the same as ME. It is a symptom of ME. Weight. Big one for me at the moment. You can see the double chins are wobbling. I've never been a particularly thin person. Those of you that have known me for a while, I've never been a waif, elf-like, none of that. But ME sufferers tend to fall into one of two camps. They either go overweight because of lack of exercise. Obviously, if you've no energy, you can't move, you can't do anything. Inability to actually think far enough ahead to have healthy food in the house. So end up eating junk food. If you're feeling tired, low of energy, your body craves energy and craves sugar, so you end up eating rubbish. Piles the weight on. And then there's also tablets. A lot of the long-term painkillers pile weight on. So that really is counterproductive, which is another reason why I didn't want to go on the long-term painkillers, because I have enough of a weight problem as it is. I don't need anything. I don't need any extra help in that department, shall we say. But then there are also the ones who can't eat. They physically can't chew, they physically can't swallow, so they end up wasting away, or dramatically dropping weight, and in a very unhealthy way. So weight is an issue, either or, both ends of the spectrum. There is isolation, because you do hide yourself away. Many of us are embarrassed by our illness because we can't explain it, we can't describe it, and a lot of the time we're not believed by the medical profession, and you think, well, if the medical profession ain't going to believe me, how's anybody else? Or because of the brain fog, you can't adequately describe what's going on, or you're afraid of letting them down. If you make an appointment to go and meet somebody, you're then putting pressure on yourself to be well that day, and the consequences of going out and having a good time could be too much for you to cope with. So you can very easily isolate yourself, which is hideous. Frustration. Huge for any and all of the previous reasons. The oh God, why me syndrome. And the frustration that you feel for not being able to go out and have a normal life, whatever normal is these days. And mood swings. Because you suddenly get angry and you suddenly get frustrated. Thank you, cracking sense of humour. Oh, thank you, Harriet. That's lovely. I am, in some ways, one of the fortunate ones. In that I have all this going on, and I, as Harriet says, keep laughing through it, because otherwise the alternative is too hideous to contemplate. And there are things that keep me going, and I'm naturally quite a positive person. So I try, for the most part, to appreciate the things I have got rather than mourn the things I haven't. But it took me a lot of counselling to get to that stage, and I've had to do a lot of work on my mindset, and I've had to do a lot of work on personal development, and a lot of work on my confidence, and it's been hard. But there are, the main problem is that there is no treatment for this. There are coping techniques, which some people can use and some people can't. It depends on the severity. And there are two treatments that are offered. neither of which are particularly helpful to the vast majority of ME sufferers. I know, mood swings, what can I say, darling? They offer CBT, which is cognitive behaviour therapy, which is changing the way you think about things, which is helps with some aspects of it, helps with some of the depression. For me, it helped with the grieving process. I said goodbye to the old me, went through the full grieving process with my counsellor, and came out the other end with a new version of me, which is what I had to do to be able to cope with the latest crash and the loss of everything. But it is not a cure for ME. It's a help for the mental side of the mental health side of the disease. And what we need to get through to people is that it is not a mental illness. It is a thoroughly physical illness that has a mental compartment to it. It's not all in our minds. I don't sit here and think I'm in pain. I am actually in pain. I don't sit here and think I am cold. I am actually cold. It's very much a physical disease. But the CBT, the cognitive behaviour therapy, has helped with some of the mental side of the problems. Not least, I've grieved for the old me, and I've been able to move forward in a relatively healthy and positive mindset. The other treatment is something called GET, Graded Exercise Therapy, where they try to get you to increase your exercise every day and push on through any pain barriers and push on through any feelings of tiredness. Some people have said it's worked. The majority of people have said it hasn't. And the majority of ME specialists are now trying to get it removed from the table of options for treatment, because in a lot of cases it does so much more harm than it does good. The progression of ME is not linear. One of the frustrations. You go up and you go down, and you go up and you go down, and you go up and you go down, and you go up and you go down. And the idea is that you try and smooth it out so that you don't have peaks and troughs. However, that would suppose that there is a perfect balance in your life. And with ME, there generally is not a perfect balance, because the symptoms change on a daily basis. So you can't balance something that you don't know what you're going to get each day. So we could really do with that being taken off the table. One of the other things that we get is post-exertion malaise, which is, instead of when a healthy person goes to the gym, all the endorphins or whatever it is get released through your system, and you come out feeling good and feeling happy and feeling like you're on top of the world and everything is right with the world, and you've enjoyed yourself and you feel, yay, I've been to the gym, I've done something really good and really healthy. If we do something over what we should do, hey Vicky, it doesn't give us that release. And worse than that, it can actually drain what little energy you had left completely and send you into a spiralling crash. So again, GET's not a good idea. So for the end of this video, because I've made it half an hour. Hi Sam, and I've kind of said what I wanted to say. If you're just joining me, it's ME Awareness Week, myalgic encephalomyelitis, which is the joyous disease that I struggle with, suffer from, survive, be a warrior for, whatever terminology you want to use. Please go back and watch it and try and learn something about this awful, awful illness. There are people who are so much worse off than I am. There are people who cannot get out of bed. There are people who cannot feed themselves. There are people who can only be awake for an hour a day, and that's in 6-10 minute slots. There are people who can only leave the house if they're in a chair. There are, conversely, other people who hold down full-time jobs. It covers the whole spectrum. And I am firmly of the belief that there, but for the grace of God, and I thank whatever you want to thank in the universe, that I am not worse. I have some semblance of life, and through the power of Facebook I have quite a few friends. Thank you very much for watching. So for Emmy Awareness Week, there is look up Emmy. Just Google Emmy. There is Emmy Action group, which is raising awareness and trying to raise funds for research, etc. Read any of their websites and just acquaint yourself with what goes on with the Emmy world. There is also a film called Unrest on Netflix, which has been made by an American journalist who got laid low with ME and decided to document her journey and document her attempts at finding a cure and all that kind of stuff. It's quite a harrowing film. Have a box of tissues, but if you have enough time to watch it, it's a very good watch. It's quite scary in places, and it does show sort of the worst levels of the illness. There are various documentaries on YouTube at the moment, obviously because it's Emmy Awareness Week. There are quite a few things floating around Facebook. I'll probably be posting quite a few of them over the next couple of days. And the last thing is hashtag missing millions, because nobody actually knows how many people there are suffering from this. It is estimated there are something like 250,000 of us in the UK alone. And not all of us are diagnosed. Those of us that are diagnosed, not all of us are getting help. Those of us that are getting help, it's not always helping. So missing millions is part of the campaign, which is why I've put a different border around my picture with hashtag missing millions. Again, it's raising awareness and showing support. There have sadly been now 2 deaths attributed to ME, with a third one potentially pending at the moment. The family of this poor lady are pushing for ME to be the cause of death, because it's robbed her of her life. My ME at the moment is life limiting, not life threatening. It limits what I can do, when I can do it, and how I can do it. And as long as I stay within those confines, then I should be okay. Yay! But there are reminders that if I step outside them, it's going to come and bite me on the bum. And I really don't want to be bitten on the bum, if I'm honest. Quite like not being bitten. So if you could look up any of those things and follow the campaign, if you could share this video. I know it's rambling a little bit now, for which I'm truly sorry. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for the hearts. Thank you for the comments. And I will see you all soon. Goodbye goodbye, that's not wrong. Good night, even. I'm not goodbye, I'm not going anywhere, just to bed. So, good night from an ME survivor and warrior. Love you.